An elderly woman walked up to a little old man rocking in a chair on his porch. Though he looked weathered and beaten, he still had a content smile on his face. She said to him, "I couldn't help noticing how happy you look. Tell me, what's the secret of a happy life?" "Well," he said, "I smoke 3 packs of cigarettes a day," waving his weathered hand, wrinkled hand through the air. "I also drink a case of whiskey every week. I eat fatty foods, and I never, ever exercise." "Wow," she says, "that is amazing. So tell me, how old are you?" 26, he said. If you're going to build a healthy body, you would not follow this young man's example. What about building a healthy marriage? Where would you look for models? A woman inserted an ad in the classified section of the newspaper stating, "Husband wanted." She received 200 letters answering her ad. All of them said the same thing: "You can have mine." Building a successful marriage, like building a healthy body, is hard work. Nothing worth having comes too easily. What about building a successful, satisfying life? Where would you look for guidance? Dr. Earl Wolf's sister fought a long battle with cancer. After she died, he was paging through her Bible, and he came across this handwritten poem tucked in its pages. "Often on the rock I tremble, faint of heart and weak of need. But the steadfast rock of ages never trembles under me." Today we're focusing upon building a foundation for each of our lives, a foundation that will last, that will endure. In Psalm 62, the author says that God is his rock. That's on whom he bases his life. The psalmist says, "Only God do I find rest. My salvation comes from God. Only God is my rock, my salvation, my stronghold, my fortress. I won't be shaken anymore. I find rest in God only, because my hope comes from God. God is my strong rock. My refuge is in God." To affirm that God is the rock, the fortress of our lives, is something worthy of being repeated several times every day. I like the way the psalm writer describes how God is his rock. He doesn't just simply say, "God is my rock." He goes on to magnify, to amplify that thought, saying, "God's my rock, and God is my stronghold, my fortress." A fortress is defined as an enclosed place or fortified building for military defense. The psalmist is saying that God is not only his rock, his firm foundation, God's his defense, his protection, his security, his guard. As parents, we sometimes question whether or not we should encourage or even force our children to attend Sunday school and church. It's a tough issue. What do we do when our child objects to brushing his or her teeth or taking a bath? Very few parents are worried that their children will grow up to hate teeth brushing and bathing. We just assume these things are important enough to insist upon. Brushing our teeth, taking a bath, are foundational issues. They're not at all glamorous, but they are essential. They are necessary. It's my opinion that church attendance, and Sunday school are vital, necessary, essential to our own spiritual foundation. Now, it's true. We are concerned about the spiritual foundation our children receive in their church and in their Sunday school classes. A pastor had received some negative reports from parents about the quality of teaching in the Sunday school. One Sunday, unannounced, he dropped in to visit Miss Jones and her class of 8-year-olds. The lesson that day was about Joshua and the Battle of Jericho. The pastor entered the classroom just as Miss Jones asked this question: who knocked down the walls of Jericho? None of the students responded. So finally she called on Billy and said, "Billy, who knocked down the walls of Jericho?" Billy had a reputation as a mischief maker, and so he answered defensively, "Don't look at me, I didn't do it." Now Billy's unusual answer and the pastor's unexpected visit flustered Miss Jones. All she could think to say was, "Billy, I'm sure you didn't do it." The pastor was appalled. He immediately went to see the director of Christian education, and he told her what happened. Can you believe it? Billy said he didn't knock down the walls of Jericho, and all Miss Jones said was simply, "Billy, I'm sure you didn't do it." The director of Christian education listened very attentively to the pastor's story, and then she said, "Pastor, I know Billy and his family. If he said he didn't knock down the walls of Jericho, I'm sure he didn't do it." The pastor almost had apoplexy on the spot. At the next meeting of the church council, he shared this whole episode, and then he asked, "What can we do about this situation?" A longtime church member stood up and said, "Pastor, there's really no problem. All you got to do is get an estimate of the damages, and I'm sure the church council will authorize the repairs." We all need a solid biblical foundation. We all need, children and adults, a foundation that will enable us to withstand, to cope, to handle all of the challenges that will come to us on this journey we call life. Life is so uncertain. Many things in life are simply unpredictable. In a park on the beautiful island of Bermuda, there's a rock hanging on a rope. And beside that rock is a large sign which says, "Weather station, check the rock. If it's wet, it's raining. If it's moving, it's windy. If you can't see it, it's foggy. If it's gone, it's a hurricane." Life is so uncertain. Just as finicky as Mother Nature has been this particular winter. We never know what lies around the next corner. We never know when something will shake us almost to the core of our very being. The Apostle Paul says in 1 Corinthians, the 3rd chapter, "We are God's co-workers. You are God's field, God's building. I laid a foundation like a wise master builder according to God's grace given me. But someone else is building on top of it." Each person needs to pay attention to the way they build on it. No one can lay any other foundation besides the one that is already laid, which is Jesus Christ. Foundations. They're the least glamorous part of construction. Owners, eager to see their dream house, become so impatient with the weeks or the months it takes to excavate and to prepare the ground for building. They want to move quickly to that part of the house in which they will eventually live. And yet, time spent on the foundation is vital to the future of that house. If the owners try to save time and money on the foundation, they will suffer and pay more in the future. Solid lives rest on the solid rock of God, known to us in Jesus Christ. Every life needs a spiritual foundation built on God, the rock. Some of you have visited the Leaning Tower of Pisa in Italy. Built from 1173 to 1372, this 12-story solid marble structure began to lean even before it was completed. The name Pisa literally means marshy land, which explains why it's going to lean. The foundation of the Tower of Pisa is only 10 feet deep. Compare the Tower of Pisa with its 10-foot foundation with some of those marvelous European cathedrals. Some of those foundations go down as far as 40 or 50 feet. In fact, in some cases, the mass of stone below the cathedral is just as big as that huge cathedral on the surface. To build a great life is like building a great cathedral. We start with a sure foundation. Throughout the Cold War between the U.S. and Russia, there were occasional defections by Russian spies. The CIA came up with an acronym to describe the 4 top reasons why a Russian spy might defect. The acronym was MICE, standing for money, ideology, compromise, ego. Any one of these things, money, ideology, compromise, ego, we might try to use upon which to build our life. But none of these foundations will ever last, will ever endure. When God's our rock, when God is our salvation, when God is our fortress, we will not be easily shaken no matter what happens to us on our journey. Let us find rest and let us find hope in God, the Rock of Ages. Amen.